Where are we? What's this fjord called? Mjolafjordur? Which apparently is home to the furthest east point of Iceland. And we're heading out tomorrow down a little dirt road all the way to the end, where we'll hopefully find a lighthouse to start our journey. I'm with Eric Batty, Emily Batty, and Adam Morka, 3 very accomplished cyclists, adventurers, and even an Olympian. And I'm a photographer. 6 months ago, Eric and myself were talking about this idea. He had been dreaming about it for over a decade, to make a traverse of Iceland. Initially on foot, but essentially the bike became the perfect tool to cross Iceland under your own steam, drawing a line through the interior, across God knows how many rivers, across an immense desert landscape with sand and rock and everything you can imagine. And hopefully in 11 days, we'll arrive successfully. I mean, that's the goal at least.
Entering the Icelantic Highlands feels like you're stepping into another world altogether. It's a raised volcanic plateau in the center of the country, and it's completely wild and uninhabited. It really feels a lot more exposed. The mountain cabins were established here to protect the farmers from the elements, and they're positioned with 1 day's horse ride in between. We are hoping to achieve the same distance each day. Nothing like pulling on dirty chamois. Day 3.
Oh yeah, it'd be funny.
Hard part is just staying organized. We have so much little stuff.
A little nervous, and hoping it is eventful but uneventful, if you know what I mean. So, I don't know. I mean, I've heard today's the hardest day, but that doesn't mean anything until we're out there.
Oh boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Oh man, it's slow going. You burn so much energy just trying to get up to speed. In this place, there's an appreciation for your own insignificance. There's no civilization, just the elements. Just sand, lava, rivers, volcanoes on the horizon, cycling right next to Europe's largest glacier, hoping a flood won't fill these plains and make it all impassable. It's easy to imagine what the start of life looked like on this planet. I can't imagine anything living out here, or developing for that matter. But it did. You're not gonna believe how much sand is in my shoe from walking our bike across those dunes. Look at this.
There is a lot of planning and a lot of thinking that goes into this, and for this size of trip, it's like a long game kind of thing. Like, you really got to think, like, how do I get to the end? It's not just how do I get through today, it's how do I get to the end. You can be as fit as you want, you can be as mentally prepared as you want, but if you can't preserve your equipment, you're not going to get to the finish line.
When you feel there's no end to the vastness or this desert landscape, out of nowhere, an oasis. Geothermal energy from inside the earth, allowing for life to thrive on a tiny patch in a desolate big nothing.
Bumpy day today. Just a lot of this. Fast. Everything gets shaken. The bike gets shaken, the food gets destroyed, the gear gets destroyed. Yeah. Rest up, shower, get in the hot spring, and get some food.
I can't believe this exists out here in the middle of nowhere. This is the nicest hot spring I've ever seen in my life. It's like perfect.
Ice caps seem like these large static objects, but they are always in flux. Whether it's snowfall and gaining mass in the winter, or the sun rising and melting in the summer, that dynamic element can catch you off guard when you're traveling so close to these giants.
So we're at the biggest river crossing that we knew we had to make. Or plan B was to do like a 60-kilometer go around. But we're here early enough we thought we could potentially get across it. And it's already pretty deep.
Let's go up the river. That's deep there. So far, the best spot we've found is right here. It's the widest and it's a little bit braided, so we got a little bit of a break between each section, which will be super nice.
By nice, you mean slightly less sketchy.
Yeah.
Not that crazy.
Looks like Chris is gonna scope it for us.
Yeah, go to your right. Ruba? Careful. Super bike?
I'm gonna get my bike and I'm gonna go across.
If you're out riding and you're starting, you know, let's say you're starting to feel tired, or you're like, oh, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? You just look around at what, like, one, I'm lucky enough to be doing this, right? Because there's a lot of people in the world that would love to be doing this that can't, or don't even have the means to do it, or don't even know that they can do it. And I think that changes a lot, like when you just actually look at where you are and just try to like freeze that time, or freeze that like moment in time. Take that picture, put it somewhere in your brain, and remember that.
I don't think I've ever been so excited to see tarmac. We just made it over kind of our last unknown. This is like a old road over the fjord, and we're dropping into Standard. Oh, look, there's a car.
We're there. That was epic. Hey, you know, it was a good bike ride. It's like, it's kept it pretty chill.
I feel so happy to be here, and I love working toward things, and this was one of those things. I feel like we saw everything that Iceland has to offer, and like really felt it. There were so many high moments and so many low moments, and yeah, it was pretty surreal.
I can't believe through all that rough terrain, nothing catastrophic happened. For 4 people riding nearly 1,000 kilometers, it's pretty wild to think about.
That was like the bike packing trip of bike packing.
That was the trip, honestly, that was the best trip of my life, 100%.
That's good.
Best trip of my life.
You've done a lot of trips too.
I've done a lot of trips.
When you draw a line on a map, and try to take the most logically direct route, you're just thinking about the necessities. Distance, places to find water, shelter. That line never translates to experience. You have to go there to see that develop. Develop inside yourself, creating memories, stimulating emotions. I mean, it can be life-changing just from drawing a line.
Hey everybody, this is Chris Burkard, and thank you so much for watching our new film, A Line Across the Sand, which really documented a bikepacking adventure through Iceland's interior. Now I want to get into a bit about this film and how we made it and why we made it, but more importantly, I also want to dive into kind of how we created it without compromising the quality of the footage and without compromising the experience. Being able to still be in the moment and be a part of it was so crucial to me and is really a crucial theme in all the films that I work on. But at the same time, you have to deliver a good product, right? And so I want to touch on kind of some of the products and the tools that I use to really bring this film to life. But first things first, this is a crazy year, 2020. It was a pandemic year, and the only way that this was even able to happen, being an American and not really being able to enter Iceland, was I got permission from the government. I had basically applied for a film permit almost 7 months ago, prior to the pandemic, and I was like, there's no way this film's gonna happen, there's no way this project's gonna come to life, but they honored it, and they actually came back to us and were like, we love the idea, we love the concept, the fact that you're gonna be highlighting a threatened area of Iceland, the Highlands, and hopefully bringing together and bringing to people some type of new and healthy tourism that could potentially inspire people to seek out this environment and seek out this place for themselves. That was really rewarding, and so it allowed us to push forward. And what we did is we hired an Icelandic production company, a good friend of mine, Ellie Thor, and a good friend of mine, Steve, at the Empire, and they kind of ran production on their end, and they were the ones that filmed this and documented it. But being one of the people in the film and being one of the people who was taking part in this journey, it was also crucial that I and my kind of teammates here, Eric Batty, Emily Batty, and Adam Morka, also were documenting this experience, which kind of was what made it tricky, right? A lot of times if you're just, going to be shooting a normal film, you could easily just kind of take a DSLR with you and have a full kit, but we needed something lighter, right? We needed to be able to rely on like the lightest, most simple tools that we could without compromising quality. And that's really what led us to taking some of these cameras with us. Now, the film and the goal of the film was really to share the beauty of kind of how a route or a place can kind of change you, and it can open your mind to new perspectives. And I think this is one of those central themes that I'm always trying to touch on in some way, is when you plan something and you invest that time, like a year's worth of planning, into kind of creating an experience, and then you go there, how does that change? What's the difference there, right? Well, sitting on the computer a lot of times, and we're building like some hike or some ride we're gonna do or something like that, or we're even laying out the idea of a film, and then you go there and you experience it, right? And in order for this kind of, I guess you could say, this memory, this really to cultivate, you have to go. There's no amount of dreaming about distant shores that are ever going to make them less distant. You actually have to go there, and that was kind of a huge theme, is really venturing into the unknown and documenting that experience. We spent 8.5 days traveling 600 miles over sand and rock and lava and some of the most diverse terrain I've ever been on a bike. And I think the goal here really is to share with others that if they want to travel to some of these places and they want to do so in a really immersive way, this is an option, right? And the beauty of the project was that it didn't take an exorbitant budget, and it wasn't something that was completely a crazy wild idea. In fact, almost anybody could do it if you're willing to just kind of spend that time, spend that energy, and obviously invest some of your own resources into going. And whether it's in your own backyard, exploring a place you've never been, or somewhere as remote as Iceland, I think this is kind of the beauty of where a story can kind of come to life. So A Line Across the Sand was really a marriage between my passion and love for this country, as well as this sort of adventure where, 4 people got a chance to do a trip of a lifetime during a time when really nobody's traveling, and it felt in some way like it was a gift, and we wanted to take full advantage of it. There have been a lot of times people have traveled through Iceland via car, snowmobile, you can imagine, right? Bike, foot, everything. We designed a route that would hopefully take somebody through the interior of this country, from the very furthest east to the very furthest west. Why? Because we wanted to tell a story. And if you ever have had a chance to go on a hiking trail or go on a bike ride or go on something that somebody else designed, they're really telling you a story in doing that route, right? You're experiencing the same things they are. You could even say that after getting off of that trail, you're more connected to that person than ever. So this is kind of one of those sort of themes of the film, and why we wanted to bring it to life, right? I wanted to give people the opportunity to go there and to experience all of the greatest things that Iceland had to offer that were probably far off the tourist map. Now, let's kind of dive into the sort of how we created this and how it worked. Well, on a bike, we were carrying about 80 pounds each. I mean, our bikes were heavy laden because we had 6.5 days of food. We also had to have the tools to document our experience. So that really was the hardest thing. I mean, honestly, being able to kind of get these off-the-cuff moments, we couldn't rely on the production company, my friend Ellie, the director and the DP, to kind of shoot all these moments because they're not with us all the time. This was unsupported. Nobody carried our gear. Nobody carried our water. Nobody carried our equipment. And so we had to, rely upon them to document some of the footage from far away or the moments they could meet up with us. But from an expedition standpoint, and this is really how a lot of expeditions or expedition type films come to life, is it's a give and take. You have somebody who's dedicated to filming, and then you have the athletes or the people who are in the film who are kind of relying upon filming themselves. So what we did is I came to the crew and I said, as the producer of this project, I said, hey, you guys have the option to use any of these tools. You can use the DSLR, you can use the new Xperia phone, or you can use the new ZV-1, okay? And why did we choose these? Well, again, easy, right? ZV-1, pocketable, really simple, something you could pull out, and this is a huge thing, with one hand, push on and start recording. And because of the fact that it had updated and amazing audio recording, it could allow us to get all that heavy breathing, that audio, those interviews we needed right there. I mean, this was kind of one of the biggest, most amazing factors of using a camera like this. Also being able to flip this screen, see what I'm shooting, have it down below, have it up high, and even be able to shoot an interview of myself. This is really where this camera kind of came to life. Now, again, would I have preferred to shoot this entire film on a massive, DSLR like the 7, right? That has incredible quality and everything. Yeah, I totally would have. But the truth of the matter is it wasn't an option. It wasn't something that we could physically put into our bags, and we would simply have lost so many opportunities if that was the case. If we had to dig into our bags and pull out this large camera every single time a great moment happened, we would have lost, almost all the shots we would have tried to get, right? So again, bikes are heavy, adding more weight to it, not really an option. The second tool that I really relied upon was the new Xperia, and this phone is incredible. In fact, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a complete skeptic about bringing a phone and using a phone on a trip. But this right here, this and this was the only 2 tools I used, okay? When I was on the bike and when I was riding the bike, or if you're running or you're climbing or you're doing something like that, this was the tool that I could pull out. And because of where the shutter buttons operated and because of the way the functionality of the phone works, given that it has kind of a proprietary camera software for filming and photography, it allowed me to use this just like a camera, kind of move my finger around, actually swipe through, change shutter speed. The functionality of this camera is incredible. I've never used anything that actually functions like a camera as much as this. So it was very intuitive, is what I'm saying. And the ability to be able to be riding, have one hand on the thing and shoot something or document myself or film. This thing was light, it was burly, I have a case on it that could fly off the bike and I could pick it up and I know that it wasn't gonna be thrashed or it wasn't damaging the glass or breaking something. So this was a critical tool. And one of the things that I asked every person on the trip to do, especially the athletes, was every night we would do interviews of ourselves. We would kind of talk to the camera, give a little bit of an interview, talk about why and how we're feeling and what's going on, and that became really important. And To set up something like this would be a little more complicated, so we really relied upon, utilizing the ZV-1 for that and utilizing the phone for that. I had a tiny external mic that could pop into this like this, and I could basically just talk to it, get really good audio. Also too, there's this common misconception that the best camera is the one you have with you, and I would challenge that, and I would say that the best camera is the one you're willing to pull out. Being able to have a 4K in a package that is so small and powerful and is able to shoot slow motion and is able to have what I think is probably the most advantageous setting of this phone and of this device is the ability to color match the profile of other cameras. So if you're shooting with the Sony Venice, you can put this in a mode that will color match the Sony Venice, a color profile, or the A7. So in the end, when you see this edit, you don't really get a chance to know what was shot on the phone, what was shot on the ZV-1, and what was shot on the A7S, because all the color profiles look the same, and that was so powerful. Now, of course, the workhorse of the trip, this is my absolute go-to for anything I'm going to be filming. The new Sony A7S is 3 now. Wow, it's one of my all-time favorite cameras. This camera, if you know anything about my history or with films, this camera changed my life. When I made the film Under an Arctic Sky, where we filmed surfers under the Northern Lights, the A7S II, and the technology that brought to the table was mind-blowing. The ability to pretty much shoot in virtual darkness all through the night, have zero limitations, was so powerful. And this is honestly the updates that this camera brings: articulating screen, the ability to shoot slow motion, 4K, the ability to just have such an incredible color profile, chromatic aberration. All of the updates, even the ergonomics of it, have been such an improvement over the S2 that this camera, which we got pre-released before it actually came out for this trip, was what made this experience so cool to shoot with. And one of my favorite things is the color profiles this offers allows you the maximum flexibility and creativity when you are coloring a film, when you're going in there and you're trying to tweak things and you're trying to create a treatment, right? You're trying to make the whole film feel really warm or really cool. It provides you that maximum flexibility. And I've noticed that massive improvements have been made to that camera since the update of the 2 and the 1. Now, in addition to that, this is a still camera, also very powerful. And I would say the same for each one of these. The ZV-1, one thing I would say is that it has a slightly less of a zoom, but it's slightly wider angle than maybe the RX100R or one of those cameras. The reason I opted for that was I realized that most of the time I was going to be wanting to shoot more wide angle format, right? And I think that was really helpful, right? The fact that you could kind of be, on the bike shooting yourself or documenting somebody else. I tended to find that for the most part, I wanted that sort of intimacy that the wide angle would bring. So this is kind of one of the reasons, besides a few of the other, video specific factors that this brings to the table, the screen, the recording, but the fact that it's a wider angle in a tiny fixed camera lens was really helpful. Ultimately, what I would say and what I kind of want to bring this full circle here is if I had to kind of pick one, it would obviously always be the A7S III, right? It's just such a workhorse camera. It's so powerful. The video recording is really incredible, and the weather sealing. But when I'm thinking about how I'm traveling, I'm thinking about how I'm moving in a landscape or a location, the ability, again, to pull out the camera is huge. Having this in a little bag right in front of me by my handlebars or in a pocket on my jacket, I could just slip this thing out, and be shooting in a second. There was no looking through the viewfinder. It was just pull this out and document right away. So I think that in some way, these two cameras, the ZV-1 and the Xperia, were really the heroes of this trip. It provided us the maximum ability to kind of have that intimacy of making the viewer feel like they were there, feel like they were a part of the experience, feel like they were in it with us. And I think that's the power of technology, right? You aim to create an experience that has a level of connectedness, not just to your subject, but to your landscape as well. I'd be happy to kind of answer any questions that you guys have about documenting this film, what that was like, what cameras did we break, what things kind of went wrong. It's always a very interesting experience going on an expedition where there's so many opportunities for unknowns to happen, for variables to come out, and to truly try to rely upon your equipment, yourself, and this super small team to document and make something that hopefully tells a fairly deep and meaningful story. And I think that if there's anything that I've realized, it's that I'm a believer now. I'm a believer in using something like this. I've heard great stories. I've seen great things of other people who have made films on mobile devices and on tiny point and shoots, and I've always been a bit of a skeptic, and this was kind of my first opportunity, and to be honest, it felt incredibly freeing. It felt incredibly freeing to not have a smorgasbord of menus and dials, but to be able to have such a powerful documenting tool in such a small package. And I would say that, if anything, it's restored my faith in the fact that storytelling is rooted not so much in the price tag of the camera that you have. It's the ability to document every moment. Again, the best camera is going to be the one that you're willing to pull out. It's not the one that has the highest quality or the best frame rate or whatever. It's the one that you're willing to pull out when the moment is happening. And I just want to leave you guys with that and say thank you so much for watching today. I've been a member of the Sony Artisan family for about the last 8 years now, and I was an early adopter to their cameras, and I would say full well that they have changed my workflow, the way I've been able to see the world, and the visions that I've been able to bring to you. So thanks. Cheers.